Alright guys, you're listening to Geek, Cred, the show about science fiction, science actual, fantasy, just about anything else you could think of that you want to talk about. This week we're talking about fear.
Okay, generally what scares you?
For me, it's exorcism or possession in general. I hate it. I hate the idea of not being able to control your body and an external supernatural force making you do stuff, especially in movies, because usually they try to subvert religion. And okay, I'm Catholic, and normally when they have movies like that, they have Catholic priests doing the exorcism. But what always happens is that it doesn't work. You know, as a kid, they always tell you if you're afraid, you pray. But when you watch horror movies like that, it doesn't work. So it kind of like plays on your beliefs.
But in movies about that, isn't it that quite often the priests are portrayed as typically impure or imperfect in some way?
Not always. I mean, since I'm scared of exorcism movies, I've only ever watched one. Yeah, and it's quite recent. The Devil Inside. Have you heard of it?
Wait, is this the one where a girl goes to Rome to visit her mother? Oh, I've seen that. Sure.
Yeah, they're not
Based
really.
on a true story.
No, it's not.
I swear.
No, but right at the end they're like, this is not true. I mean, like, okay,
They're just saying that. They're just saying that to
I'm a
comfort
bit
you.
scared right now, and then they suddenly show this is not true. And right at the end, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm happy now.
Are you talking about the tagline in the credits where it says, all this is based on fiction and it's not meant to represent anybody?
Yeah.
Yeah, they put that in everything.
No, they don't.
Yeah, they
Stop it, okay? Last night I couldn't sleep because I've been watching trailers of horror movies. The things you do for it.
Just to get into the mood. Yeah.
I spent like an hour just trying to fall asleep and I couldn't.
And you had nightmares after that?
I had nightmares about a kid like committing suicide, but he didn't die. So he just went back up the building and then he tried to kill himself again. So I was just there watching. I didn't really do anything. So when I woke up I kind of felt bad, but yeah.
I wish that people could see my face as you were telling that story because I'm just standing here mouth agape being like, oh my gosh.
Well, what's wrong with that? It's a dream.
Yeah,
That could be a good plot for a horror movie, actually.
Yeah, people would totally want to watch a kid kill himself again and
I
again.
don't want to watch it.
I feel like there's already a movie about that.
They're stealing my ideas. I
Yep.
mean, technically they did it first.
Retroactively stealing your ideas. Yeah. Okay. I'll have words with them for you.
You should.
Oh, what's your favorite horror idea?
Well, I think it would be my least favorite. And so what really gets to me is zombies. And it's not necessarily that a shambling, rotting corpse is scary to me, but it's the idea behind zombies that really gets to me. And it's this idea that it's partly a loss of control, just like possession, in that you get sick and instead of just dying, you then are even more of a burden on the world because you're off causing mischief and eating brains and whatnot. But it's also about a sort of fear of tyranny of the masses, because zombies are only really scary when they're A, fast, or B, when there's lots of them. And that sort of idea that large people in large crowds, or average-sized people in large crowds, can be particularly concerning.
So the threat does not need to be zombie itself, but just the idea behind it.
Exactly.
All right.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's like I don't think that many people are actually scared of vampires, per se. They're scared of the idea of what vampires could mean in society. Same with zombies.
But zombies are scary.
Well, I mean,
Vampires, I mean, disregarding Twilight, the original vampires are pretty scary as well.
I don't know, Nosferatu, he was just kind of sad.
How about you?
For me, I'm not really scared of...
Anything!
Fearless lawyer.
No, but I remember when I was 10, I was reading this illustrated classic called The Picture of Dorian Gray, and it freaks the hell out of me. You guys read the book, or at least know what is it about.
Yeah, so what you're saying is you hate paintings.
I don't hate paintings, but I'm not in comfort with the idea that a painting that can replace you to age. Whatever sins you commit get transferred onto the painting. And when you stab the painting, you kill yourself. And that it doesn't clock with reality, and that just gives me uneasy feelings.
So let's make that a bit less abstract for a minute. So
Okay.
the whole painting as absorbing your aging energy and your sins. What is it that really scares you about that? Is it aging, or is it that people could live a life without sin, even though they're sinning, and so they're living a life without negative karma, or...
Not really aging, not really living a life without sin, just the general, because it's so abnormal. Just the abnormality of the entire plot.
Okay.
Yeah, that gives me the chills. I mean, I'm not scared of like horror movies or ghosts or zombies like that, but because they're predictable, and in every single horror movie, at least in China, there's this long-haired Asian girl that wants to kill you or something.
I've got 2 of them in the room right now. It's terrifying.
So it's the unpredictability, it's the unforeseeability,
Okay.
and the twist and the plot.
So what is it about scary stories and scary movies that actually draws us in?
For me, horror movies are kind of cathartic. I think it happens for a lot of guys as well, whereas women like to watch... It's the same as how women like to watch romantic comedies. Yeah, they cry.
Yeah, when I'm sad, I just like blood and guts. I like to just spread them around on my body and rub it in,
It's true because they vicariously experience what's happening on screen, and you kind of vent your real emotions on something that's not real. And therefore, you purge those emotions without actually being threatened by it.
Okay. Well, I don't know if for me it's so much of a release as I really like the idea of watching someone's humanity flicker. And so I guess it's nice that it doesn't have to be me when it's happening, but just like any sort of literature, it's not so much a release as a reaffirmation of what humanity is and what it is to be someone in very extraordinary situations. And so it's wonderful to see someone in a very trying situation and watch those moments where they're sort of on the verge of either doing something very fantastic or being very cowardly and turning into a monster, and seeing how they handle it. That deciding moment where either something bad happens forever or something stops happening. And it doesn't matter what the actual outcome is, it's just how people come to terms with what they're going to do and what they come to terms with how it happens. And so, yeah, again, coming back to zombies, the odds of a zombie outbreak happening, not necessarily that high, and based on the amount of zombie movies I've watched, I think I'm pretty well prepared, or as well prepared as anybody can be. I've got my bug-out bag set up and my escape plan. But, the idea that I could lose control or that, riots break out in the streets and people kind of lose their minds a little bit and just start tearing apart the world around them for whatever reason, I think that that's something that is relatively realistic in a lot of scenarios, and seeing how a certain set of people deal with it is fascinating.
For me, it's not about the idea that people dealing with stuff. What I like about horror movies or horror books in general is just the pure thrill of reading the twist in the plot, of reading stuff that will never happen in real life. And that's quite satisfying. I'm not sure how to explain it. Maybe there's a scientific basis behind it.
Basically, when you watch horror movies or when you sense fear in general, your sensory organs send signals to your thalamus, which then directs signals to your amygdala.
Amygdala.
So
That's
that's a part of the brain, right?
Yeah,
Thalamus.
it's
Okay.
parts of the brain. And then your amygdala basically decides whether or not that fear is worth it.
Amygdala.
When there's an actual threat in front of you, or when you're really scared, what it does is that it's in charge of letting your body react to it. For example, in the case of fear, it sends signals to your adrenal glands, which release adrenaline.
Adrenal.
And is adrenaline good?
Well, it gives you symptoms like what you usually have when you're scared, like your heart pumps faster and harder, which generates a lot more heat, and therefore you sweat. And I don't know how real this is, right? But they said that sweating palms, it's actually an adaptation that people have so that like when the sweat dries out, it's stickier so you can hold weapons more. Like you can hold weapons better, but I'm not sure how real that is.
That's fascinating.
That makes sense, actually.
Yeah, but from the same website I got that the reason why your stomach feels weird when you are scared is because vomiting or defecating kind of puts off predators. Yeah. How interesting is that? But I don't know if that's real though. Yeah, and other things like, blood is pumped into the muscles, which requires energy in case you need to run. And that's the reason why you tremble and your legs shake. And your senses are also sharper. And that's the reason why when people watch horror movies, they kind of jerk. It's kind of a reaction because you're more sensitive to stimulus. And the reason why people like getting adrenaline rushes is because, your senses become more sensitive. And therefore you get a high out of it when you experience the world in a more stark light. And you experience these kinds of things in a very safe environment.
You were saying about that, vomits and feces puts people away, so...
I mean, it's an adaptation, lah. It doesn't happen now, obviously. You don't...
Challenge accepted.
You can't shit and the ghost will go away, right? I don't think it works that way.
Well, hey, maybe a bear would.